Hi, welcome to our parish support webinar. I'm Sonia Kundu from Somerset Climate Action Network. I am the network coordinator, and we also have Steve Muse present. If you want to say hi, Steve. He's one of the directors. I'm not sure who else we've got here from Somerset Can.
Nobody else yet, I don't think, Sonia. So
okay. Oh, Cara's just joining us. I can see.
Oh, great. Okay.
So I think we've got a whole mix of people in the room of different types of parishes. It might be an idea actually to just get a show of hands. Who's from a parish that has declared a climate emergency? Okay. So it's actually less than half, I would say. And people who haven't declared a climate emergency, I'm one of those. I'm in one of those parishes. Admit all. Okay, so that's an interesting starting place. Can I just ask, Robert, have you got your hand up because you were responding to the question, or have you got your hand up because you're asking a question? The actual hand up icon. Oh, I'm going to lower hand. Okay. Melissa, are you around? I'm trying to see if Melissa's in the room. Melissa from Glastonbury, are you about? If you are, unmute, please. And I can't see her in the list actually. Okay, not to worry. How about then we start? I was going to start with a presentation from Melissa in Glastonbury, who's with Glastonbury Town Council. Glastonbury have declared a climate emergency, and she was going to do a presentation and talk us through where they're at, what they've achieved with it now. But maybe while we're waiting for her, we could maybe just actually start with some questions from any parish councillors who are thinking of declaring a climate emergency, but maybe don't know how to go about it. What questions might you have? And I did also get some comments in by email from a parish councillor wondering how to recognise that there's a climate emergency actually within your parish, and what does declaring one, what does it achieve? What's the point of doing that? You know, did it make any difference? What was the how could they relate that to their own parish? And I think that's a question that smaller parishes are potentially finding. And I think there was also a question about budget, possibly. You know, how does it affect your parish council budget? So I'm wondering if does anybody have any questions to add to that? If you want to put your hand up or just unmute. Val, do you want to go ahead? I can see you've got your hand up. You need to unmute and then you can speak.
Yeah, I think I have. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a general question, really. I'm in Norton St Philip Parish. We would like to declare a climate emergency. We have really only just, I would say, got the support of enough parish councillors to be able to do that. They seem to be now fully engaged. I wondered if there's some kind of written guidelines or a sort of memo sheet that can be handed out, or a checklist or anything that would be a way to give options about how we can go about doing it and in what order.
So I believe there is a charter, which I'm just trying to access that now, which I know that Steve could definitely tell you a little bit more about.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sonia. What we tend to suggest to parishes, Val, is that they find their nearest neighbour really that's done it already, and they can probably talk you through it. Every parish is a little different, but what we did, I'm trying to think, we probably got our first draft via via Glastonbury, I expect, and adapted it for Wetmore's use when we actually produced our sort of green charter. So there's no set rules around it, but really is good. I mean, I know. So Norton St Philip, that's near Frome, isn't it? Have I got it right? Yes. Checking my Somerset geography, which sometimes goes a bit awry.
Right up in the very top right-hand corner, about as far away from Taunton as you can get.
Yeah, it's beautiful part of the world there. It's gorgeous up there. I used to live in Poulton, used to commute into Frome. Anyway, yeah, so there's lots going on in Frome. So my recommendation probably would be to chat to them. Although obviously it's a big town rather than a small village, but they would be able to give good advice and help and support. I'm sure as a near neighbour, they'd be happy to help. Cool.
I would also say that there is a survey which was done by the National Association of Local Councils on parishes who had declared or not declared a climate emergency. And I've got a whole bunch of information which I'm going to send out, which does have a number of links. There's some basic information from Friends of the Earth, 20 things you can do. There's actually a document on how to declare a climate emergency, which actually I could start typing up some links in the chat. There's something from Zero Carbon Britain, research reports, adapting to climate change, a guide for local councils, local councils' powers to address or reduce climate change, existing powers and future opportunities. There's quite a few bits in there, and I will make sure that I share all of that with you afterwards. Sorry, I've just got a message from Cara saying activate chat. I didn't realise it wasn't activated. How do I do that? I'm finding that a little bit.
While you're doing that, Sonia, I've got a hand up, see, from Sue Isherwood. Do you want to ask your question, Sue?
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah.
Well, it was just that I know that both the county and Mendip District Council, I don't know about the other districts, have declared a climate emergency sometime in the past. Where have they got to? And what help are they giving parishes?
Right, okay. Yeah, that's a big chunky question. I like that, Sue. Thank you. Where are you based from? Where are you based from? I recognise you're there.
Westbury Sub-Mendip.
Oh, right, okay. Yes.
Not far from Wedmore.
Yeah, I think I'm going to meet you at some event, I expect.
Yes, well, doesn't matter.
So yes, you're right. All districts in the county have declared a climate emergency. Some have declared a climate and ecological emergency as well. Most of them did that in 2019, 2020. And one of the big things that came from that was that the districts and the county worked together to produce a climate strategy, which you can find on all their websites. And that has been developed, and the different districts have had sometimes their own action plans and so forth as well. So Mendip's been very active. They've appointed, so Cara's one of the climate officers down at South Somerset, and you've got the wonderful Jacob Hall up in Mendip, who have been working really hard trying to turn these strategies into action, in essence. As you're probably aware, it's all about to change. So we've got unitary coming down the road pretty fast.
Exactly.
So from next April, there will just be one council. And of course, we just had local elections, so there's a new administration in charge as well. So there's fresh energy, fresh people looking at it. We've got the lead on the environment and climate at Somerset County Council, and in the future Somerset Council is a lady called Sarah Dyke, who's very effective, very, very, very good. And she's ably assisted by a fabulous lady called Dixie Darch, who they might be on the call. We should better say nice things about them. So yeah, they'll be trying to inject more energy, renewable, I hope, into the strategy. And that'll be very interesting. And as part of the new setup with a new council, there will be these things called local community networks, where clusters of parishes work together on different issues. So as those develop, it'd be worth trying to see how they grow, how they develop, and sort of get in at the ground floor, basically.
So you're suggesting that we don't know who the local community networks, how they're going to cluster yet, do we?
No, we haven't got that.
My feeling is that that's not a top priority for the new councillors.
No, you're probably right, Sue. I mean, my basic rule of thumb is never wait for anybody else to do stuff. Just crack on your own. So I know Westbury Sub Mendip's a very active parish, doing great things already. So yeah, keep steaming ahead as you're doing your wonderful work on trees and so forth.
Oh, good, yeah. Well, we do have a good start with our trees and the tree nursery.
Yeah, brilliant. Sonia, the chat's working. I can see numbers popping up. So I'll go back to you, Sonia. Take more questions. Oh, you're on mute there. Nope. Well, while Sonia sorts that out, I'll take who was next on the questions. I think it might be Barry.
Thank you, Steve, Sonia. Just a simple question, really. Thanks for arranging this. Do we have a kind of an agenda or a schedule of what we're doing this evening?
Well, the start of it, Barry, was going to be a talk. Oh, you're still on mute there, Sonia. We were starting with a talk from Melissa, but she hasn't come on the call, which is what's frustrating. That was going to spark off a good discussion. And
sorry, I missed that.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Are you Sonia?
I mean, yeah, Steve, if I might say a couple of things while we're
of course.
Like we're waiting. I mean, I think the whole climate emergency thing, it sort of sits into two kind of categories from a local point of view. One is, to try and see what we can achieve with our local people to reduce climate emissions, to try and reduce the impact. But I think the biggest thing we need to be focusing on is we have global warming and we have impacts from it now with severe weather and things. So I think the second thing that we need to be looking at from councils is how do we support our local communities to look at high temperatures, flooding, and severe weather. And we're seeing quite a lot of severe weather in our local community with we're nowhere near the levels, but we're still getting quite a lot of heavy rain and flooding. So I just think there's two aspects, and I'm sure if we had the talk, that would come out of it. So I just put that forward, just two items.
You've picked my favourite subject, Barry. Thank you. Can I ask where you're from? Which parish?
I'm in Henstridge, which is just south of Wincanton.
Okay.
Right on the Dorset border.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're quite right. Most climate work splits into two. You've got mitigation, which is trying to reduce carbon emissions and trying to address the impact we're having on the planet. And then you have climate adaptation, which I think is what you're describing, really, which is how we're coping with the climate change that's already in the system. And you're absolutely right. We need to tackle both. They're not mutually exclusive. You get crossovers. So some things that are climate adaptation, so like planting trees and what have you, is also really good for climate mitigation. So, but it's really, really important to think of both those aspects. So thanks for raising that. with climate adaptation, Somerset's been doing some quite exciting stuff over the years, which is really, really good. So we're a little ahead of the game with other counties, and what's being developed as I speak is a kind of a how-to guide to climate adaptation at a parish level, which has been developed by a group called Adapting the Levels, which I'll stick a link in the chat in a bit. And they're doing really good work, and hopefully we'll get some more funding to keep it going beyond the end of their current funding. Because you're absolutely right. Yeah, we've got to adapt. We've got to adapt to stormier winters, drier summers, heat, drought, wildfires, heaven knows what else. It's all coming down the track. So yeah, no, thanks for raising that.
Yeah, I think that when a parish does actually declare a climate and or ecology emergency, preferably both, I think that it leads to a higher level of climate action, and that you're more likely to get climate working groups coming up in your parish, and that can be linked in with sustainable neighbourhood plans. You know, all of these kinds of things can actually be written down and put into your actual plan, so that it gets carried forward regardless of changeover of councillors, that sort of thing. And there's various things that you can do as well to see about, you know, what's actually going on within your parish. You can get people to look at their carbon footprint calculations, for instance. I'll share some links afterwards about the carbon footprint calculators, and that's just also, it's quite handy to get people to think about their own general lifestyle, and it also, you know, as it's been mentioned, the county council have you know, they've declared a climate emergency, and I think the more parishes within the county that jump on board with this, the more momentum it will create to support the county in actually achieving those goals. And of course there's various community groups all over Somerset, which are part of Somerset Climate Action Network, who are already doing incredible work, and there's lots of lessons to be learned from those guys as well. And I think it's really, you know, if you go to our website, somersetcan.org.uk, I hope I've got that right, and look at our network map, and see which community groups are in your area. There's lots of them who are doing absolutely brilliant things, and and combining with them is also, I think, really, really helpful. And of course, as Steve mentioned, working with neighbours, and when you've got a little cluster, I think it creates a ripple effect. So, for instance, one of the things that Glastonbury Town Council are looking at doing right now is becoming a pesticide and herbicide free parish, which is, you know, it's a really great initiative, and I think there's lots of work to be done in terms of education and creating posters and all sorts of stuff. But that kind of thing, you know, say if once a poster's been developed to educate people, then that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and that can be shared around Somerset. And so I think coming together with meetings like this, that we can support each other with ideas and help to answer each other's questions. I'm going to stop talking and I hand over to Peter, who's very patiently had his hand up for ages. Thank you for waiting, Peter. Finney, if you want to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening to you all. Yeah, Peter Finney from Dunster Parish Council. We effectively gave out a climate emergency message a couple of years ago, but admittedly with COVID, etc., it's been fairly quiet, and we've had various grants from District Council, South Western Taunton District Council, for trying to recover the High Street and its activities, because Dunster mainly is a tourism spot. and we've had various initiatives, including recycling of waste. So obviously with a lot of tourists, you get a lot of waste. So we've got new bins going in which categorise the different types of waste to obviously enhance that side of it. We're also talking to the guy from Exmoor National Park who's leading on plastic-free drinks. So looking maybe to put in some form of drink fountain, people to bring their own bottles and not, having the bottled water and discarding the bottles. But it's a difficult situation. Being tourism, obviously, there's businesses that depend on the tourists coming in. That of course attracts people from the outside in cars and buses and what have you. We've been waiting patiently for the last 2.5 years for electric charging points for the main car park in Dunster. And after many discussions, we've been finally told that there's not enough power at the moment available to actually power up the units that are required. So we're a bit of a rock and a hard place on that one, but we're working on it. So we are working, but the fact is that things are quieter. We're finding that the more and more people are actually not coming out in their cars and with families. It was a bit of a spurt round Jubilee, but it's relatively quiet at the moment. So whether that will bode well into or not well into the summer vacation, especially when schools break up. So we are working on this, but I think we would appreciate some stronger guidelines as to what's available. Is there any funding available? And initiatives that you talked about, pairing up with other local or localities that will have already declared or not declared to join forces. But we're not in the know of who they are. Obviously, we know the parishes, but we haven't really, I suppose, guilty of not communicating with them to see what's happening. So that may be something I'll carry forward to the next parish council meeting, to make some form of contact through the clerk to actually see if we can get some dialogue going with the different local councils, etc. But yeah, it's a little bit airy-fairy at the moment. I've come to this meeting tonight, and say the gentleman earlier said, is there an agenda? Well, like all good meetings, I would have thought there would have been some form of discussion document that we could have seen before the meeting. So stabbing a little bit in the dark, but our thoughts and our hearts are with averting or helping to avert any escalation in global warming, etc. And of course, being on the coast, we're about 800 metres from the Bristol Channel, and there's already talk about by the time 2030, 2050 comes along, Minehead could be underwater, which is a bit of an alarming thought. But there's still building work going on, and you're wondering, well, building into the foothills of Exmoor, because obviously we are on the foothills of Exmoor, and being hills and water retention, where's that water going to go? And there's going to be more and more with the houses that Minehead is certainly planning, and there's going to be more emphasis on providing more water. So where's that coming from? The end of the day. So there's lots of issues here, lots of question marks, but just some form of guidance would be very helpful, I think, in helping us to work with others and try and see a way forward.
So I'll just respond to some of that, Peter. Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. There should have been an agenda, and that's absolutely my fault. I must apologise, but I've slightly dropped the ball a bit because I've been running into hospital every day to look after my mum, who's just had a massive operation on her spine. So that's nobody else's fault but mine. I should have reached out and asked for some help on that. However, I do have lots of notes, which I will be sharing after this with the recording of this session. And there'll be lots of links in there to support you with that. We are also at Somerset Can developing a new map, which will have all of the parishes indicated on there who have declared a climate emergency, and that can be updated as and when anybody else declares a climate emergency. But because that's not yet published, when I send out the recording, I will also send out a list of all the parishes who have declared a climate emergency with some contact details, so you can get in touch if you wish. I hope that will be helpful. Does that answer some of your questions, Peter?
Yeah, it's just really some form of, guidance on the way forward with this, stabbing in the dark, basically, a little bit, a bit rudderless. So we need a bit more, bit more of a captain at the helm, I think.
Okay, well, there are, as I said, there are various parishes who've done some amazing work so far and have got a really clear outline guidance. Melissa has actually just joined us as well. So in a bit, we'll have her presentation, but I'm going to quickly take questions from Mo and then Danielle and then Jill. If we could keep it brief, and then we can go into the presentation, which I think you will all find really useful. Go ahead, Mo.
Okay, right. Stephen Tate from Langport Town Council 2 years ago started the Levels Climate Forum, which is a collaboration of over 26 parishes and town councils in our area. And we actually ran a SCOP26 conference at the Edgar Hall in Somerton, which was supported by Langport and Somerton town councils and by local businesses. So they all sort of did sponsoring. And we had over 30 different parishes represented came along. And we had a talk by Melissa, another one by Justine, and various other people. And it was a very good opportunity for parishes to get together, and if they felt they had something in common with another parish, to start to form links. And we're hoping to do another one this November as a follow-up, and obviously invitations will be going out. But it was a very good opportunity for people to get together and to share their experiences. And I say it was a ground roots thing, because again, as you say, the powers that be are a little bit lacking in coming forward to give help. I mean, it's there, but you've got to go and dig for it. And Cara was very good. She obviously gave us quite a lot of help. So we will be hoping to do another one in November. And I hope if you all get our invitations and you're interested, you'll come along. Thank you.
Thanks, Mo. And yeah, I mean, if everybody signs up for the Somerset Climate Action Network newsletter on our website as well, I should share the link for that here in a minute, then any invitations for things like that you will receive if you miss them in any other way. And there's also lots of amazing information in that newsletter as well for ideas and things that you can get involved with. Danielle Price, please.
Hello, good evening everyone. Thank you for tonight so far. I've just recently joined Street Parish Council as an assistant and was invited along to the talk this evening because I'm a bit more climate change involved, I guess. And I think a lot of people's questions, it does seem like a real miasma to navigate, like you just don't know where to start. But it is really just about being simple, starting simply. I think a lot of people have mentioned about like banning plastics, single-use plastics and stuff. Once you get to that point, you start consciously thinking about your printing, about all sorts of things. So it's just really tiny wins, I think, everywhere. And one of my tasks over the next few weeks is to publish like a 10 quick wins as an office. So I'll put that out on social media. And hopefully everyone will be able to see that. The reason I put my hand up was because obviously I'm really new and I know I'm green and I get it, but what's interesting, and I know that we want to be steered and we don't want to be rudderless, as somebody said, but we're kind of missing potentially surveying our community and what they want as a commitment to climate change, because, you know, as I understand it, I've done 3 modules of ILCA, so forgive me. But yeah, I think there should be surveys put out to see what the public wants. From what Mo contributed earlier, it really sounds like there's a great sort of core of people getting together and wanting to learn more and share each other's ideas. But that was one thing that sort of struck me as a very new person to a council structure, that we've got barriers, but the easiest barrier to me would be to ask the community. And I know that that involves a lot of, you know, planning and deciding on what kind of survey you're going to do. But ultimately, if the community are happy and we're going in the right direction and we've improved practices, then I would hope that that was kind of the direction we were all going in. Sorry, I know that's not a question.
Andy, just to come back to you on that one, if that's okay, Sonia. When the climate strategy was being designed and written down a couple of years back, Somerset Can did a lot of survey work, and what I'll do, I'll dig that out of our website and pop it in the chat for you. That should be a good chance to get you going.
Thank you.
And a question from Jill, please, very quickly, and then we'll go to Melissa's presentation.
Hi, I'm not sure if I can start my video or not. Oh, done it. There you go. Great point there about involving the community from Danielle. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I wanted to do a shout out for councils that don't have a climate emergency. In my council, we tried to get it approved back in 2019. It wasn't approved. But out of that, we formed an environment working group that has been really active and done an awful lot of work. And the people that are on that committee, that working group, are focused on climate change. So it feels a little bit like you're ostracising those that aren't yet with the climate emergency. It's not absolutely necessary. You can work without it if you've got a mixed council that don't all think that climate is an issue.
I think that's a really, really great point. And as I mentioned earlier, yes, there are loads of community groups all over Somerset who are doing brilliant things and quite often spearheading the movement and kind of pulling the parish council along with them, which is, it's great. It doesn't matter which way it happens. And from Somerset Climate Action Network's point of view, you know, we're definitely not trying to exclude anybody. We want to bring everyone on board in whichever way your local community sees fit, and provide that network umbrella for you to tap into for that community support, and to be able to ask all your questions. So if Melissa's there, I know she has joined the room. Are you about, Melissa? Can you unmute?
Hello.
Hi, Melissa. Brilliant. I have
being late.
Absolutely no problem. It's fine. I have set share screen to multiple participants, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, great. Okay. There we go. The right one, yes. Share, and then do that. Can you see that?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, we can. Thanks very much.
All right. So I've been asked to just quickly do a brief overview of the work we're doing at Glastonbury Town Council. Mo will have seen, and a few others of you will have seen this before, but it's kind of moved on a bit since then. So I'm just going to give a quick thing of why our approach is important, what progress we've made, and our 5 areas of work is the main thing I'm going to set out. So I started off, when I started looking at this, I kind of started looking at all the, what's going on. I'm sorry, the dog, barking dog. Looking at all the different guidance and publications, and was sort of what's around. And I came across this report for the government commissioned, which is in terms of how they would, how they expected to reach zero carbon by 2015. And one of the things that really struck me was this graph here, where you can see the projected need is this grey column, and the projected energy demand that is expected by 2050. And then you look at the way that renewables and non-fossil fuel sources of power and heat are expected to grow during that time. And you see there's a huge gap of 40%. And this is in a government report, and I've never heard anyone speaking about this in government, but this is kind of really highlighted for me why it's not enough just to switch everything to renewables. We're going to have to make huge cuts in demand as well, so to actually get to zero carbon. So that's just something I've still have in my head. How are we going to do that? And whether on whatever scale it is, this is kind of, there's going to be this gap unless some miracle technology suddenly appears. I'm gonna, and then there were certain things that, you know, we can't do. So he went on to say certain things we won't be able to do. So aviation, shipping, cement production, eating beef and lamb, those are the big ones that he said you can't, there isn't a zero carbon way of doing those things. But we also need to reduce energy demand by to 60% of present levels. So just that's in the background as I'm kind of talking about this. Then
Melissa,
yes,
I do apologise to interrupt.
That's all right.
But I think it's important.
Yeah.
The figures you've just seen there and shown us.
Yeah.
Does that take into account of the additional electricity requirements that their governments desire to have electric vehicles?
Yes, yeah, I think that's part of the modelling. I mean, I really recommend you look at the report, because it has detail of every sector of what their projections are. Obviously, it won't all be completely right, but yeah, that's another thing. You know, that's another big challenge. So it's switching from fossil fuels to electricity. That's the demand that they predict. So it's yeah, it does, as far as I know. But you can kind of look at the detail in that report if you want to go into it in more depth. But I just wanted to put that seed there, because that's kind of the background, always in the background of all the decisions I'm trying to make, is this challenge we have. And then I'm talking about why it's important, why local government is important in this challenge. And if you look at the sort of, I came across this like little illustration of our needs, basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So there are certain things, there are basic needs, psychological needs and self-fulfillment needs. Some of those you can tackle it as an individual, but most of those are served by the systems we live within, so including our governments. We can't sort of control all of these ourselves as individuals. So working as a community and with our local governments is a sort of the best way to tackle these things. So that's just another kind of seed there. Why Glastonbury Town Council's approach is important. Apparently there are 9,000 town and parish councils with 80,000 councillors serving 16 million people. And then that's something from COP, but hang on, I got these pictures on top of my text. Okay, and Glastonbury's kind of, we're really lucky in Glastonbury. We've got a town council that prioritises environmental issues. We've got a majority Green Party town council. again at this latest election, a passionate and active climate emergency group who are sort of community group who get a push a lot of things and also get a lot of things started in terms of the activities. And we've got a really diverse and caring community that support each other, which is a really good start for this work. Okay, why aren't you? Oh, there you are. So our CO2 reductions so far. So the first thing I did was evaluate carbon emissions from electricity, gas, water, waste and fuel, because those are the things you can count really easily. That purchasing and other areas I'll talk about later, but those that you can't get the data for that easily, and I don't want to spend 2 years counting stuff and not actually doing anything. So electricity, they switched to ecotricity, zero carbon electricity. Great, that was easy. The gas for the heating of listed buildings is incredibly difficult, and we're still working on that. Well, our boiler has just broken down, so it's become even more urgent. But that's a particularly difficult challenge, and a challenge that's replicated all over the country in our old building stock. Then water, we can reduce water use further with rainwater collection for watering things and everything. Waste, we can reduce the amount of waste we produce, but obviously the waste processing is done by elsewhere. And fuel, we've switched one of our vehicles so far to a second-hand electric vehicle, and then also there are tree and hedge planting, which in theory we could kind of calculate as absorbing some of the carbon that we're emitting. But it's not just about carbon. I really like this cartoon, which is really old now. I think it's from a summit in, I can't remember when, about all the sort of, there's loads of other benefits that come along with sustainability, and with carbon emissions reductions, we actually get a lot of other benefits along with that. Okay, so our approach to doing this covers 5 areas of work, and there's certain things that we can do because the powers of a town council are pretty limited. We can control the buildings that we own and various green spaces, and we can control certain things of the stuff that we own, but we can't control a lot of things around the town. So what we did was we sort of decided, okay, we're going to start by reducing. So if you think back to that chart that I started with, we've got to reduce demand first before we start decarbonising. We've got to aim to reduce to 60%, and then we decarbonise. So then we use renewable energies. Then we also want to support nature, because the ecological crisis as well is a looming and very present problem. And then the way that the council can go beyond its powers is to influence. So by sharing what we're doing, by doing things like this, by trying to support community groups like the Climate Emergency Group, by buying and purchasing, making the choices that we make in our buying and purchasing, we can have an influence by lobbying higher levels of government as well. That way we can have an influence beyond the direct powers that we have. And then finally to adapt, because obviously most people know by now that we're going to miss 1.5 degrees. So we're already on the track for some serious challenges. So preparing for those challenges. So here's just some little examples of things that have been going on in each of those areas. So to reduce, it's insulating buildings, heating them but less, choosing small appliances, and then reducing fuel use by reusing vehicles less, and obviously cycling, driving, walking, reducing waste and resource use as well. So just reducing all of this stuff that we do as much as possible while still providing decent quality services. So trying to adjust that as much as possible. Then we've got decarbonising. As I said, we switched to an electric van. We're supporting a community solar project, and as I said, switch to ecotricity. Also for support nature, there's a lot of work been going on in sort of trying to rewild various areas, supporting the allotments, protecting the peatlands and the wetlands as much as possible through our influence. And also there's a lot of tree planting that's gone on, and wildflower planting too. Then in terms of influence, last year we held an open day, a resilience open day, and starting to try and get all the amazing things that are going on in and around Glastonbury, getting people to talk to each other, trying to share and support both ways as much as possible, and supporting little community activities like the litter pick, and as I said, through our purchasing choices and finance choices, we could go even further, and campaigning and lobbying government. And then finally with adaptation, sort of trying to focus on, this is one of the things we're doing, is we're setting up, there's going to be a resilience committee that will then also, part of their remit will be to update our emergency plan. So in terms of all types of emergency, but also climate change challenges being part of that preparation, and also building those community links and community support networks that help communities be more resilient, and hopefully also providing sort of more support for individuals who are finding it's a really scary, it's very, very scary once a lot of people's reaction, and I completely understand climate deniers. I would love to be able to deny it all, or people who are just too scared to look at it, or they don't feel there's anything they can do. So trying to support people on an individual basis as well as community and larger scale things. So that's my final slide, is just this quote from Jem Bendel. Says, millions of people are suffering right now. It's worse than we were told. We are now in danger, and we must do all that we can to try to slow the problem down, and we must also do all that we can to help each other through this. And so how do I stop sharing? There, stop sharing. Yeah, so that's my I've stopped sharing, but
I think you are still sharing.
Oh, that's weird. No. Oh, okay, so that's my emails up. Is it someone else's? No, it's not my emails. That's not my screen that's being shared. That's weird. That's someone else's screen.
Really? Oh, maybe it's my screen. Hang on a minute. Let's stop sharing.
Yeah, there we go.
Is it gone? Right, great.
We both shared it once.
Yeah, that was a bit odd. Thank you, Melissa. That's great. I was just about to type a message to say that you mentioned people who are climate deniers and so on. So this we also ran a webinar with Climate Outreach, who've done some amazing work on how to actually start that conversation. They've done months and months of research into the different types of people that are out there and how best to get through to them, and basically speaking to people about things that resonate with them, and creating that empathy with people, so that you get that connection, and then people become much more willing to listen and be on board. And that I think that's, yes, engaging with the community. I can imagine that lots of the projects that you spoke about, Melissa, could only be possible to get going through community engagement and education. that is really important to find out what is important to people. And I think if you start out with a list of questions, I think Steve's probably going to post a link to the surveys that they did, but you know, there's various areas of climate action that many people haven't really considered that they could possibly do anything about, or, you know, just haven't realized that it's something for some people. Climate action is just solely about plastic, and just because they haven't taken that thought train a bit further. And so a really good survey can help prompt those questions in their heads, and get them to think about it. And I think you'll generally find that most people are actually quite keen to do lots of amazing things wherever they can, and potentially just need support from each other. We've got another 3 questions. I'm going to ask them in the order that they're up on my screen. Peter Finney.
Hi, a question for Melissa. Well, a couple of questions. First of all, I applaud Glastonbury Town Council for what they're obviously setting out to do. Just a question on how is this being funded by the council? Is it through pre-steps or any other source, government grants, local grants, county grants, or whatever? And the other question is, I do travel through Glastonbury quite a lot because I've got family in just over the border into Wiltshire, so we do go through Glastonbury and we do stop to have a coffee at the tea rooms or whatever. But what I'm sort of fairly shocked at, obviously on waste, you've seem to have quite a large traveller community, and they seem to be shoehorned down small lanes, etc. And just glancing as you go by in the car, the amount of waste that they're generating, which is scattered up and down the lane. You're just interested to see how you would actually, or how are you dealing with this, because it is obviously something that could derail the efforts that you're putting in if it's left unchecked. So I'll be interested to know, you know, how you are dealing with that. And there's a further lane that you can see as you come out of Glastonbury on the road to Shepton Mallet. If you look down into the valley of the levels there seems to be a very long lane, and it's nose to tail with caravans. So again, I would imagine, not having got close to it, but you can see the number of caravans that are there, how you would actually bring them into the frame of obviously recycling, reusing, and creating less waste. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind considering those questions, I'll be very grateful.
Yeah, in terms of funding, the major cost is my my wages, basically. So I work 3 days a week, and that's paid for out of the precept, out of the, you know, the funds, the town council funds. And then they have small grants that they give the community groups who do stuff, but it's not hugely costly, you know, what we're doing. We're actually trying to, because we're trying to reduce demand and reduce stuff, that's also quite a good way of saving money at the same time. So that's the strategy. We apply for grants wherever we can, so there have been a few grants that we've applied for. I don't think we've had 1 or 2, but none of the big ones. But we do also, Glastonbury's lucky to be one of the Town Deal Fund towns. So they've got 23 million coming into the town over 12 projects, or maybe by 13, which are going to be regeneration projects. And to go into your next point, one of those projects is to provide an area for traveller community and the non-bricks and mortar community to be able to be supported and to live. it is an ongoing challenge for Glastonbury. During COVID, a lot of people were drawn to the town, a lot of van dwellers, and they've been moved off several areas by Mendip. I think it's Mendip, or is it some, I can't remember who is, but it's basically the highways and the other levels of so it's not within the town council's power to control where the travellers are and what they do. However, it's been, you know, they have been involved in discussions, and they've been moved off, but obviously they've now moved into the areas where that you've just mentioned. One thing I would say, though, is in my experience, the people who live in vans actually use a huge, much less resources than we do living in houses, and produce much less waste. But obviously there isn't the infrastructure and the services to deal with that. So a lot of them are really active in collecting that waste and dealing with it and taking it places. A lot of them are very active in supporting biodiversity, but there's, you know, a huge range of different people living within those communities with their own significant challenges. So yes, it's an ongoing challenge, but I wouldn't see, to me, it's more visual than the waste we produce, is what I'm saying. It's like, you know, but it's actually it's a tiny amount compared to what an average house dweller produces. So yeah, sorry, but I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
Paul, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, thank you. I live in Cranmore Village. I was really interested when I saw it came out on our Facebook page, and I really wanted to be here. I'm not sure if there's a councillor from Cranmore here. I understood there would be one, but I don't recognise anyone. What I want to say is I'm inspired by Melissa's presentation. Really fabulous, actually. It's given me a lot of heart that this can be tackled at a very grassroots level. So I really, big thank you for that. And I'll be sharing, a lot of what you said with people in the village. I also thank you very much for supporting the travellers. I thought it was a very elegant answer there, because I would really hope that there's not the potential to demonise that community through, these initiatives, and you gave an answer that was quite the opposite, and really having some empathy and appreciation for how they live and support for them. So thank you for that. So I mean, that's all I wanted to say, but great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Timothy, please.
Yeah, evening all. Hi, Melissa. I'm from Chard, so probably a slightly bigger town than Glastonbury. Did you break down your target into two sections, I think as we've done, where the Chard Town Council, for us to achieve zero carbon status by 2028, it is very doable with all the actions that we've done, which are probably identical to what you've done in Glastonbury. But we have some major energy users here in the town. Have you broken it down into two sections where you're dealing with your big industry or whatever businesses you have in Glastonbury, as well as a town council, or are you squashing it all together into one?
So no, what I presented to you there was just the town council and what we own and what we can control. So that's why I wanted to put the influence in there, so that because we can't control, we can work with the businesses, we can work, and support and give guidance and share experiences like this, but there's nothing we can kind of get our hands on. So yeah, it's a challenge, because a lot of people say, no, the whole town should be zero carbon by 2030. I was like, that's not going to happen. That's really, it would be great if it did, but that's, you can't just magically happen. So it's a real that's why the influence is so important, and I think that's the next really important challenge for everyone. And it would be really good to hear other towns' experiences of how that's tackled. as well. But yeah, we you know, we've got different kinds of industries to you, but you know, it's all absolutely agree.
Thank you.
Gosh, I'm just wondering if no one else has any comments. I don't know if Steve wanted to say something very quickly about Wedmore, but it kind of needs to be super fast.
Yeah, I noticed Isabel's down there on the chat as well. So hi, Isabel from Wedmore Parish Council. Oh God, what would be useful to say in like 30 seconds? I think just to emphasise again how every community is different. This is what makes it a challenge to produce a guide or how-to guide, because everywhere is so different. You know, we've heard from Dunster where they got a load of tourists to deal with. Other areas are, well, like Dunster, but other areas on the coast have got the whole issue with sea level rise. Other areas have got flooding, more direct flooding issues. It's everywhere's different. And I think the key thing that we've always approached it in Wedmore is just to keep taking action, work with everybody you can, work closely with the parish council, work closely with all the other groups that you can, just to keep achieving and keep moving forward. The challenge is massive, but it can be fun. It can be incredibly rewarding to get stuff done at a parish level and at a community level. And as you see that community building as well, you get that sense of achievement where people are helping each other out and giving advice and sharing resources and sharing, even just sharing kit, you know, lawnmowers or drills, whatever it might be. But it's just building that sense of community is all part of it, and that's what gives me the buzz to keep doing what we're doing well. So I hope that helps.
I thank you, Steve. I think we've had some comments through the Climate Action Network itself about climate action being populated by quite often the same old faces, and you know, there's a small hardcore bunch of people around Somerset, and we all kind of seem to know each other. But the amazing thing about doing things through the parish network is that you're suddenly reaching potentially a whole different part of the community that wouldn't necessarily normally be involved in those conversations. So it's a really good way of spreading that word and getting more engagement from more people than you might otherwise normally be able to. I will be sending out a copy of the chat. I will be sending out a copy of the video. I will get a copy of Melissa's presentation, if that's okay, Melissa, and then I can share the slides as well. And I will also share a whole load of really useful links when I send out the notes, so that it's all available for everyone to access. And you know, if anybody's got any other questions at any point, please do email them to me at Somerset. I'll put that in the chat to everybody. somersetcan@gmail.com, and we will endeavour to get them answered. Thank you very much for everybody's time. Oh, I can see, sorry, Phil Shepherd, you've got your hand up.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm here from Somerset Film and Seed Sedgemoor, and I just wanted to say that both arts organisations working, Seed in particular, working across Sedgemoor with arts and culture, have recently made climate and biosphere declarations. And in the case of Seed, we are putting out a call to action, and we would be very interested to talk to any Sedgemoor councillors that would like to talk to us about how we might work with your parish to take this agenda forward, using arts and culture as a vehicle, a very powerful, you know, arguably one of the most powerful forms of communication there is through arts and culture. We'd be really delighted to talk to you. So my name's Phil Shepherd. I'll put my email on the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. And I believe that's it. it. There's no other comments that I can see. I'm okay. It's 8:34. I think we will wrap this up. Thank you, and good night. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Sonia. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. It's been great. Thank you very much.